What do you think can be learned for future entrepreneurs? What lessons can be taken out of this? Is there some good that can come out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to one of the conversations that I had with a source of mine who was a really close friend of Tony's. And he was really struggling to decide whether he was going to talk for the book or not. And at the very end, he decided to talk. And so I just asked him, what changed your mind? Like, was it, something that, did something happen? Was it something that you thought? Was it something that I said? And he basically said, if by telling Tony's story, it could prevent another person from going down a similar path, if it just prevents one person from going down that path, then my participation will have been worth it. And I think with Tony's story, I mean, there's so many lessons that you can pull from this, but if we're talking about mental health in Silicon Valley, there's a part in the book where we talk about the connection between entrepreneurs and hypomania. And hypomania is essentially a milder form of mania that's associated with manic depressive states. And the way that you define hypomanics is that they are almost irrationally confident. They are very high energy, and they almost feel like they've been chosen to change the world in a positive way. And if you think about that, you can probably describe a lot of Silicon Valley founders in that way. You kind of have to have that gumption to think that you can do it, and to want to leave that safe 9-to-5 office job to build a company out of an idea.
Irrational optimism.
Irrational optimism, exactly. But with hypomanics is that while they experience the highs of highs, they also experience the lows in a much lower way than the average person. And when you think about the life cycle of a founder and the life cycle of a company, there's going to be a lot of boom and bust cycles that a company goes through before it becomes successful, if it becomes successful. And so as a founder, if your identity is tied so much to the success of your company, that means you are that much more susceptible to a depressive state if your company goes through a difficult chapter or winds down. And so again, if we're talking specifically about mental health in Silicon Valley, I think we need to recognize that while founders are very daring and they have very lofty mission and goals, and it's great that they do, they are more susceptible to potentially developing mental health conditions than the average human being. We cite studies in the book that show that entrepreneurs, they show a higher level of either mental health conditions in themselves or mental health conditions reported in their families than the average person. And so I think that that's really something that the community in Silicon Valley should just recognize, especially if your day-to-day job is dealing with founders and entrepreneurs.
One of the pieces of advice that I give a lot of entrepreneurs is to find a co-founder. Because one of the challenges with the crucible of a startup is the ups and downs are really bad. And right. When things are really down, it's helpful to have somebody else who's kind of in the trenches with you.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good advice. And that's something that Tony was missing in the last couple of years of his life, for sure.